Hey guys, thanks for checking out my channel. Thanks for finding Bad Hombre Garage. You're not going to want to miss it today as I give a technique on how to do one-man brake bleeding. That's pretty much universal. Most of the stuff I do here is kind of hot rod specific, Model A specific, but brake bleeding, everybody's got to do it. So follow along, you don't want to miss it. Before I forget, make sure you click that subscribe button, hit the bell, that way you get notifications every time I put out a new video. And also, shout out to my guys over at Model A Mafia. These guys are great. They put out some high quality stuff. Go check them out too. I'll put a link at the end. And make sure you follow through and put a comment at the end. Let me know what your favorite part of today was. Hey, good morning everybody. Back at it, back in the garage. I'm pretty excited today because today I'm going to put fluid in my brakes. We're going to walk through how to bench bleed the master cylinder and then how to bleed the brakes using the one-man technique that I learned somewhere along the way. There you go. We got brakes all put together, ready to rock on both sides. I got my brake drums painted up, cleaned up, ready to go. So I'm going to slip those things on and then let's get after it. We'll walk through how to bench bleed. Here we go. Let's get started. Okay, bleeding brakes, all about getting air out of the system. And it's got to start with our master cylinder here. So we're going to go through bench bleeding this thing. There's a few different techniques to it. Same thing with all the brakes in the car, I guess, but the first technique is kind of the old just let it happen technique, which you would just fill these reservoirs with fluid and just wait for the fluid to start running out of here steadily with no air in the system. The second technique is one where you force it through. And you essentially put a hose from the outlet port of the reservoir right back into the fill part of the reservoir for each front and rear. And then you just work the piston back and forth until you get all the air out of the system. And that's the one I'm going to go with. It seems to work pretty well for me. To do that technique though, I'm going to just use a little bit of brake line I had, one piece I had laying around here, and I'm going to just bend myself out a couple pieces that goes out of the port and dumps right back in. And then I'll just throw these in one of my work toolboxes and have it handy for future use. Let's see, other things to think about. Yeah, if you guys didn't see one of my previous episodes, this master cylinder came and had a lot of the casting material, the rough edges stuff that had broken off and were just laying down on the bottom. And so that was pretty bad. So I took a air hose, cleaned it out, brake cleaned it all out the best I could. So anyway, all right, let's get started. I got to bend these lines up here. I didn't show you guys in my previous ones the techniques I have for bending. I just have this little guy right here that uses has different size lines or different sized. It's set up for different size lines. But the trick for, like I want to make as tight a 90 as I could on this one, so I just set it on the fitting as close as I could. Bend it around, made my 90. Now I just got to come in here and kind of visualize how I want it to go the rest of the way. And I just use my little marker to kind of figure out I need another 90 that starts about here and then bends around and dumps it there. So we'll make this happen. Okay, you can see how I made this hose that just now turns, drops down in here, and do the same thing to the other side. Okay, so I got my two lines bent that just dive right back into the reservoir. So the next thing I can do is dump in my fluid. Don't want to overdo it. And of course, brake fluid will mess you up if you get it all over you. It'll mess your clothes up too. But I just bring this up about half to 2/3 full. Really, I just want to make sure my hoses are underneath the fluid inside there. And then I'll use my little nut driver here, and I'll just go nice and easy and work it. you can hear that, but I can see bubbles coming up inside there on both the front and the rear reservoir. There we go. Trick is just keep forcing it, because we want all the air out of this bottom chamber here, so that we don't put it into our system and it'll work well once we plug it into the car. Okay, you can see the bubbles in here, and as I work it, nice and easy, continue to get the bubbles to come up. All right, and that's the process until no more bubbles pop out. All right, I think it is done bench bleeding. You can tell because as I go back and forth with the piston, I'm getting no more bubbles. So the next thing I get to do is to transfer this from my bench over there to the car without making a mess. And I'm going to do it just like this, leaving my fluid. Actually, I'll put a little bit more fluid in there so I don't drop one of my lines under the, or drop the fluid underneath the level of the line and get air in there. So I'll just be safe, top a little bit more off. Okay. And now, let's see if we can do this without making a big old mess. Yeah. Okay. Of course, my lines are in the way. That's all right. Okay, now I just got to go in here and put the nuts, locks on there, tighten that on, and then we'll go about hooking up some brake lines. Okay, I got it in, bolted all up tight, and you can see brake pedal works it. This is where I could have just done this all right here on the chassis. Nice and slow. I don't want to hit it hard, it'll blow brake fluid everywhere. Okay, and this is the part of the episode where I try not to get brake fluid everywhere, but it's inevitable. There's going to be some that comes out. The trick is get this thing out of the way. There we go. The trick's going to be to get this out, and then my brake line hooked up without letting brake fluid just go everywhere. So let's see what we can do. Come on now. Okay, and there's where we get brake fluid all over my paint job on my master cylinder. Let's get rid of that guy. And let's get this guy started in here. There we go. Okay. Go ahead and bring that guy all the way down in. Get a shop towel, wipe up this mess so I don't have brake fluid running all over my car. Come on now. There we go. Okay, I'm going to get a towel, clean that up, and then I'm going to snug that up there and snug it up on the fitting back here, and then repeat the process for the front. Okay, it's time to show you my one-man brake bleeding technique here. What I've got is a big glass bottle. It's nice and clean. Used some brake clean inside of it, cleaned it all out, and then I have a piece of hose. This hose is sealed. It, I could suck on the end and holds air in there, so I know it seals tight. I just have a little fitting on the end of the hose just as weight, because what I want to do is use that same theory we used on the bench bleeding of the master cylinder for my brake system. I'm going to run this hose down in here. I'm going to put a little bit of fluid down in this bottle so that the hose stays under it. Hook the other end of my bleeder, crack that bleeder loose, and the idea is not to introduce any more air in here, and then I'm going to go pump that pedal. When I pump the pedal, it should push air and force, well, it'll be forcing the fluid into the system and forcing the air out. Air should bubble up, and anytime I release the pedal and it sucks anything back in, this needs to be under the fluid, and it should suck just fluid back in. So let's go hook it up to the car and see how that works. Alright guys, this is where we're going to make the magic happen. I have my one-man bleeder kit set up here. I've cracked the bleeder loose, 10mm wrench. Why wouldn't it be SAE, right? Metric wrench, got it loose. This is sealed on there. Really, this doesn't have to be super tight. It just has to seal on there enough that it's not going to suck air through there, and it's not going to let brake fluid dribble all over my rear axle here. My hose is run down in with the fitting in the fluid in the bottom of the jar. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put fluid in the reservoir, and I'm going to slowly pump the pedal, and we're going to find out where all my leaks are, really. But we're going to find out if this works. Another technique I've read, don't know if it matters, start with the brake farthest from the master cylinder. So that's kind of why I picked this right rear. All right, let's see what we can make happen. As I pump this brake, I can hear fluid going through the lines. And we got our first leak. Leaking out of this fitting here. Alright, so I'm going to come in and tighten that up. Hopefully that fixes it. And we'll keep repeating this process. I tightened up that other leak. So what we should see happening here is I continue to pump this pedal, as we should start seeing fluid come through this clear piece here. And I should see bubbles happening down in the bottom of the jar as we push the air out of the system. There we go. Okay, that's good, and you saw that big burst of air come through there. Now I'll just come in here, tighten off my bleeder, pop my hose loose, and we'll move on to the next brake. Well, what do you guys think? You like the one-man brake bleed technique? It's cheap, it's easy. Just hang on to a little bit of vacuum line or small line. I like this little piece of clear line, as you saw on that last brake I did. You really get an indication. You can watch the bubbles coming out and you can tell when it's done bleeding all the air out of the system. So there you go. I walked around and I don't see any more leaks, brake fluid leaking anywhere, so I'll check that to make sure. If you guys look, I'll hit it real slow. Whoops, hit it real slow here. Nice and easy. You can see I've got a good pedal and I can lean on it and it doesn't give on me, as in it doesn't just continue to come down. I think that's a good solid pedal. Alright, I'm going to top off the fluids. I'll probably walk around one more time, check for leaks, and then I'll wrap this up. Alright everybody, I'm wrapping this one up. I'm going to call that a big win. Getting the brakes to work on this car is a huge step towards getting this thing on the road. I sure appreciate everybody's support. Do me a favor, if you haven't done so already, just click the subscribe button, hit the little bell, click on that thing, that way you get notifications every time I put a new video out, which is usually about 2 to 3 times a week if I can stay on it. I sure appreciate it. Hey, when I checked this morning, I had 100 subscribers, so thank you guys. 100 of you hit the button, appreciate it. Not only that, but there's just all kinds of nice comments I get from folks and feedback and thoughts of, hey, did you think of this, or don't forget to do that. That's what it's all about. This really reminds me of growing up. We had a carport, and in our driveway there, we always had some hot rods, and people would just stop by. They'd swing by, see what's going on, share some ideas, do a little bench racing. It's fun. So this is it. This is in this virtual environment we live in now. This is kind of the same idea. I sure appreciate it. Let's continue to build this community. Okay, one more thing before I wrap up. Guest host jumping in.
Hi everybody, it's Reggie the Lizard again.
It's old Reggie the Lizard. He's back. Okay, we'll see you.